Hello and welcome to a Crispy HP tutorial, and I know it's been a really long time since my last video, but this one video will make up for that really long wait, I promise. Today we're going to have a look at processing recorded drums, and these are the drums that you record with a live player rather than the ones you've sampled in. So let's take a look and see how I start the mixing process of drums. Now there's a couple of things you have to consider. Now, because I'm processing the drums on their own with nothing in the background like other instruments, it's going to slightly vary from when you do have a full band playing, because you've got to also make room for the other instruments, but with just drums it's a lot easier and you can just play around with different frequencies rather than having to cut some to fit other things in. So it's quite a good practice point to start with just recorded drums and see how you process them. So let's get started. Now I'm going to reset all my channels down to 0. Now I like to start from nothing. You're probably wondering why. It's a lot easier than from starting from all of your faders up and trying to adjust things from there. Whereas I start by adjusting the kick so it hits a certain peak point, and then snare, and then so on. I'm going to show you that now. Now I'm going to find a loud part in the mix. Let's see, we got it here, so let's go from 37 to 50. Oops. So let's go from 41 to 51. 10 bars will do. Right, let's open the mixer again and play, and then we're going to do the kick drum. Let's make sure that, yeah. When I adjust drums or something, I like to keep it between -12 and -8, like all across the field. So you've got plenty of headroom to add EQ, compression and all that. So we just take another listen to the kick drum on its own to check the level. So we had it peaking at around -10 there. So now we're going to bring in the snare. So there's a snare in now, and it's just peaking around 11.3. So now we're going to get the toms in. Now, toms don't play very often in this song. So we're going to find out where they do play, which is around here, 41 to 46. And then cycle, and then get the toms. So I'm going to link them first to get a rough level. Unlink. Now I'm going to pan them left and right as they're labelled on the tracks. Let's just pull them into 45. So there we go, we're peaking at around -11 now. Now we're just going to link all of these and pull them down just a fraction, like so, and then unlink. This is just to make sure it doesn't go above -8. So now it's peaking at -14, which isn't too bad. Now one thing I've learned for the time I've been mixing is that you want to mix quiet but turn your speakers up so you've got plenty of headroom later on to add other instruments and stuff. So that being said, let's move on to the overheads. So we're going to pan these first left and right, then link them, and then uncycle and play. Now we're going to do that to the room mics, link and play. So we got a fairly nice mix setting there. So it's pretty good. So we've got to pan the room left and right and keep the mono one in the center. Let's see how that sounds. So that's peaking up minus 10.4 decibels, which is really good. So now the next thing you want to do when you're processing drums is gating, especially live, because the problem you will find is that you get a lot of bleed. So let's listen to the snare on its own. You can hear the entire kit in that snare drum. So let's open up the Steinberg gate. I'm going to try and use all Cubase plugins for this tutorial. Excuse me. This is just so that you know that you can do this with just plugins. So now then, the one rule that I like to use with gates is to try and get the threshold as low as you can to gate. That's the best thing. Turn the attack down, turn hold off, turn the release down to like 71-ish. Let's go through. Turn the release up again. So that's a pretty nicely gated drum there, snare drum. So there we go. Now if you can hear some of the other drums, it's because when the snare drum hits, the release is letting them in whilst it's closing, so you have to compensate for that. But it's a pretty well gated snare drum there. So now let's move on to the kick drum. Let's listen to the kick drum on its own. Yeah, you can hear there also that it's letting everything in. So let's Steinberg Dynamics 8. Let's go right down to 60. Let's go to 80 on that one. So that's a nice gated kick drum there. Now, the hard one I find is the toms, really. Because they're quiet themselves, really. I'm just going to mute my microphone so I can hear it properly. So that's the tom left done. Now I'm just going to hold Alt and drag that across the tom's right and play through again. So that's it done for the toms. That's my dog jumping off the bed. So that's it for all of these. You don't really need to gate overheads, room mics or anything else because they're pretty much everything on a whole. So let's listen to the toms, snare and kick together. Oh, whoops. So now let's go ahead and EQ the overheads. I'm just going to pull up Steinberg Studio EQ. Now we're going to roll off a lot of the low frequencies. Just boost ever so slightly the high frequencies. Like so, just to give some clarity. Now the room mics, you pretty much want to keep them on their own, but you can listen to them and like fine tune what you need. So I'm going to pull up my EQ again. And just peak. Just going to boost the high frequencies to get the snare. Just unlink this for a second. And let's just boost the kick. There we go. So let's just get rid of that one. Sounding pretty good. Same to the mono mic. So that's sounding pretty good just on its own now, with just EQ and a bit of gating. So now let's go on to compression. I'm going to compress the snare, bring up the dynamic compressor, let's go all the way down, turn the attack down, hold. Now what I like to do is turn them all the way down, so you just get the click of the snare through. So we got a really punchy snare drum there. So it's got a real punch to that now. So turn that up again. Now let's do the same for the kick drum. Steinberg dynamic compressor. Turn that down. Notice the snare is a little too sharp. So that's just that's a really nice kick sound we got going on there. Now let's just compress the toms. Now toms, I'm not really familiar with compressing them, so we'll just try. Let's just see how that sounds. Turn the threshold up. Turn the makeup down a bit. Okay, let's hear that. Now we can just alt click and drag onto Tom's right. So it's a really nice full sounding mix we got going on there. Now we can also compress the overheads, but instead of compressing them separately, I'm going to make two group tracks, or three actually, in stereo. Okay, let's just pull that over slightly. So we're going to name this one Overheads, then Room, then this one can be the drums group. So let's click on the overheads, pull up the routing options, send these to the overheads, send these three to room, then we can send the overhead and room through into the drum group, and then we can select everything else and output it into the drums group. There we go. Now I'm just going to move my narration behind the drums group. There we go. So now let's compress the overheads. For some reason this isn't working how I wanted it to do, because these aren't soloing. I am back now. I've figured it out. I had an option selected, so we can solo the overheads now and play through them. And now we can pull up the compressor. So we don't want much compression, just enough to get a small trickle of the gain reduction there. Okay, and that's now what I like to do with the room group is really heavily compress it. So we're going to put up, I'm not too sure if the compressor you get with Cubase is going to handle the really heavy compression. So we're just going to solo the room. Yeah. That's pretty compressed there. So let's just pull this down. I'm just gonna take that bite off the kick. There we go. So now you can really feel the drums pumping there. And you can hear the compression in the cymbals when they strike, in the overheads. It's really causing. And the toms come out now. Hit these last cymbals here. That's the room mics really coming in there. This is the quiet part of the drums in the song. So it handles that pretty well. So you're probably wondering why I haven't done any EQ yet. Now I like to get everything gated and compressed, and then I like to EQ everything at the end, like proper tone EQ. So let's EQ the snare. We're going to get some more high frequencies in there and cut off some of the lows. Let's go to Steinberg. Oops. EQ, Studio EQ. Just going to find a passage with a lot of snare. Yeah. So I'm going to go to peak. Let's get some body with the snare. Cut off some of the lows. Pull down the volume again. So let's have a look at the kick drum now. Let's get some EQ on there. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Right, so let's get some beta action. Just around here. Let's just find a passage with a lot of kick drum. Let's try here. And then let's just boost just a tiny bit around 100. Let's EQ the toms just a bit. So I think there's a part here. Yep, there. Now I think in the left tom it's just hitting the rim of the drum. So yeah. So that would be pretty easy to EQ. Go to standard, EQ, studio EQ. I'm just going to take off some of that punch. There we go. Yeah, put down a bit. And then let's open the studio EQ on here. It's all a matter of really listening to the toms and finding the points. Listen to it. Now, because we've gated everything, the EQ isn't going to affect the tone of other instruments, so this is a good thing. So you can really hear that everything is just gelling well together. Now we've already EQ'd the overheads and the room mics. Now we're going to add some tambourine. Tambourine's a really weird one to compress and EQ. So you're going to put some high frequencies in, not too much, and cut off a lot of the low frequencies because I don't really have much. You can also hear the kick drum somewhere. You can hear it there. So by cutting off the low frequencies, you can be pretty much gating it as well. So let's compress this just a tiny bit. Barely even trickling in, we want it. There we go. Yep. Let's just unsay that. So now we're going to compress the final drum group, which is where it brings everything together and mixes everything nicely. got a really nice drum mix going on now. Lively, punchy, and almost feel the groove. Now another thing you can do is limit the output of everything, but because I have my narration going through the stereo out, I'm just going to limit the drums. But if you were doing this as a mix, you would limit the stereo out. So let's put up the Steinberg dynamic and the limiter. Turn the input up, and the output down, just slight. Now you can hear the spill in the mics, because it is recorded in one large room. Turn the input up again. You can really hear that punch coming in there. Now I don't particularly like using the Steinberg limiter because it's really old and just doesn't get you very far. So I'm going to do a little bit of an advertisement here. If you go into Dynamics, the Waves set, you have L1 limiter and L2. Now L1 is really good, but L2 just takes it up another notch really. So let's turn off the Steinberg limiter and open up this and go through it. It's just a lot cleaner than the Steinberg one. Now this is still a bit too tacky. Another great thing about this limiter is you can actually gang these two together. So you can actually limit and not hear a difference volume-wise. So the volume's not going up, but it is limiting and pulling everything together. So let's just try that. Now I'm going to go to the real extreme. You can hear it's being limited, but you don't hear much volume difference because, so if you just pull this up, there's a good setting right there. Put it up to say -5. No, point -5. -5. There's a really good. Let's just pull this up a little. Say 7.5. So you've got a really nice sound there. It's full, it's fat almost, you could say. But like I said in the beginning of the tutorial, I mixed this as if it was a solo drum mix, which is pretty much what it is at this point. But if it was part of a band, I wouldn't have done it like that. I'd have mixed it slightly differently. Like I'd have mixed so the kick had less low frequencies, the overheads and the room mics much lower frequencies, and the toms would have had lower frequencies as well. And I wouldn't have limited the output, but I would have compressed the final output as well. So you pretty much get a pretty good picture of what I go through every time I mix drums. Now of course you can be more creative with this, like you can put reverb on and have it so the snare is really huge and the toms are massive, and the overheads you can actually be really creative with those, and the room mics as well. You can put distortion on the room mics and it sounds pretty good. So I'm going to try that now actually, just to show you what I mean. I'm going to go to Steinberg again, distortion, and use the distortion. And we're going to go to Reso Drums. Now I used this setting for vocals earlier, which is why it's still selected. So I'm going to mute myself so you don't get any of the computer noise, and then just adjust it slightly. So as you can hear, everything has a lot more crisp to it. Now you wouldn't necessarily do that if it was a solo, again, because you want to have it as raw as you possibly can, but having it as punchy as well. But if you're mixing a rock song per se, you could have distortion on the overheads and room, just to give it that bit more crisp and crunch to the overall sound. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I know it's really long, it's almost 40 minutes all in all. But thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next one after Christmas. So I wish you all a Merry Christmas, hope you enjoy it with all your family, and New Year's. Hope you all enjoy New Year's also. And I shall see you around the middle of January, or late January, I'm not too sure yet. So I'll all see you then. So thanks for watching, Merry Christmas.